Give your neighbor a high five. Welcome them to this place. Welcome them to this place. All right, so now we are going to go a marathon, and welcome to the people, our online community. You are amazing people. You are amazing people. Welcome, welcome. Today we are talking about a topic that is not so easy to handle, but a topic that I felt so pounding on my heart: fatigue. Fatigue. Okay? Being a dream killer. So many of us are fatigued, but without even knowing that we are fatigued. And sometimes this is what we are saying: I am tired. I am done. How many of us have been in that place? I am done and dusted. I am tired. I am this. But remember, this is self above situation, because now we have placed the situation above self. And now we are saying we have included ourselves. But guess what? You're not tired. You're not tired. You're still in the race. Otherwise, you would have abandoned it. Do you know that the people who say I'm tired are the ones that are still trying to make it work? Yeah. So are you really tired? No. That means you are exhausted and you are fatigued. So you need to be able to address the source of this. You don't just need to talk about it and say, I am tired, but that is just a feeling. Being tired is just a feeling. And yet, fatigue is something that hovers around you, and it's like a cloud. Have you seen nimbus clouds when it's about to rain? Like it's about to rain, it does not rain, it's cold, it's not cold, it's just there. You are just getting tired. And guess what? God created us to be creators. And whenever you are fatigued, you cannot create. You cannot create life. You cannot create whatever, even if it's content. You cannot create any program, any curriculum. You cannot write any book. You cannot nurture your children. You cannot cherish your marriage. Everything becomes like a bother to you. And let me tell you, that is something that so many people help us go through without even knowing. And because you're deemed strong, because then you should be the strong one that the people come to you. So now you end up dying in your own movie with your fatigue. So that means you're piling fatigue after fatigue, and you're not getting any answers to it. And in this case, we usually say that a comparison is a killer of life. But do you know that you can work through comparison? You can deal with your mindset. And you can still reclaim back and say, you know what, I'm beautiful, I am good enough, I am stuff like that. But when fatigue happens, do you know that we look for distractions? Instead of correcting what brought the fatigue, what we do is we start doing so many things on top of the fatigue, and we end up letting the fatigue win. And yet we have the right to dial up the fatigue or to dial it down. That means we need the tools, and we need to know what are the symptoms of what we are dealing with. Are we together? And sometimes our fatigue is outsourced. Sometimes our fatigue is outsourced, because what explains when you say, but for me, I come from such a family. So we start explaining away our fatigue, why we are not successful, why we are not doing the things that we are doing. And then you start pointing it out. You know, my parents, you know, my former boyfriend, you know, my bosses. So now we are stringing along fatigue that is on us and the fatigue that is brought by other people. So we outsource. We are not contented with our own fatigue. We go ahead and lift other people's baggages and go with them as if they don't belong to them. How many of us have gone on scrolling on your phone because you were thinking about creating content, and all of a sudden you started scrolling and you're like, I'm looking for inspiration. And this is what happens. You come maybe from work, or wherever you're coming from, and you're looking for inspiration, and the inspiration is not coming. And there's a way the brain becomes fogged that you can't even think clearly. So now you go with the phone, and the phone is like this. And you're looking for something, you're like, I was posting, whoever is asking you, so now you're cutting away all conversation from everyone else. Could be your husband, your child comes in and you're like, first wait. You are here looking for something that you even don't know. You spend an hour and you're like, what was I looking for? I was looking for which name? I screenshot it, then you go to screenshots. You look endlessly, and then after that and then a pop-up comes. You go to the pop-up, and then you start seeing other people. Do you know the bandwidth our brain uses to consume other people's posts? Do you know the bandwidth? Should I explain it to you? The bandwidth is whenever you see a post, you just don't see a post. Your brain processes it. You're like, is it nice? Is it not nice? Do I like it or don't I like it? Maybe when I like it, I will look weird because it is a weird. Do you see all those processes that are happening in our minds? So do you think you're going to do anything that is creative in that moment when your bandwidth is being consumed by something that is not supposed to be consuming it? And then you're like, but this coach, this one is also a show of mama taking pictures in front of a jet. So what should we say? Do you see all that interpretation? That is brain work. You're getting tired, even the more. You're getting fatigued. And then you see someone who posted a very nice post, and you're like, one day I will also learn storytelling like this. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't even know when that... Like, you are talking to yourself, but you are consuming. So all anxiety, all exhaustion, all fatigue comes from consuming. And sometimes it's not just consuming things that are visual, even consuming bad food causes fatigue. Consuming bad TV causes fatigue. Consuming bad friendships causes fatigue. Consuming bad thoughts, entertaining them causes fatigue. And fatigue leads to an overwhelm. That is where you find people who will tell you that they cried and they didn't know why they were crying. I don't know if some of you have faced that. It seems like some of you are living good lives. Like, all of a sudden you think about you're looking for a certain breakthrough and you just feel like you're stuck and you start crying. Sometimes you even feel like, but so-and-so should have helped me. Like, we start putting it on other people. And because maybe they did something or they left us to figure it out on ourselves, and now we are breaking down. Why? Because we have been piling fatigue upon fatigue. Now, when you go back to, I usually like giving the Bible references. When you go to Romans 12:2, when they say that, when the Bible says that, do not conform to this world, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I've told you, you start a week and you think you've written your things and you're like, yeah, this is it. This week is really going to work. But because you have been fatigued for so long, you can't do anything. You look back at the week and everything you set out to do, you did not do. And yet, they were in your power. You have the brain capacity. You know yourself that you have the potential. You know it that you are gifted. You know it that you are creative. Other people have said it about you, but you fail to make even a single move. Or even when you make a single move. And this is what happens. When you make a single move, you celebrate it for the whole week. You write one good post. There is a way you breathe like you have done 1,000 posts. You know, and then you keep checking it to see whether people have really liked it. And then you go back into the loop of consuming. So that means no one is immune to fatigue. When you go to Philippians, when it's where it says 4:7 and says that the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Jesus. Now, the peace that surpasses human understanding cannot dwell in the same body where overwhelm and fatigue dwells. One must make way for another. Okay? And that means that you decide and say, this year I am making way, I am paving way, and I am making time for peace. You make time for it. And you're like, I am making time for peace. If it means putting away the phone and saying that, you know what have I gained with being with the phone every time in my hand, and I finish a week without doing anything? Now, it's better I put it down and I put it away from me and I go back to my authenticity of playing and giggling with the children, of doing the things that are taking my mind off other people so that I can even listen to God and the direction that He has for me in this season. Do you know that God has a direction for you in this season? A clear strategy of how you can win, not even a strategy that anyone is going to share with you. Part of what we are doing is sharing strategy, but I am showing you the one that gives you strategy that is beyond what I can ever give you. Do you, when you do those videos, for example, I was listening to the video where you were talking about depression and how you have gone through it. Some of that strategy is not what you're taught in class. Some of those things, they make way to your mouth when you open the mouth and you open the microphone and you put a camera in front of you. And God knows that there are 1,000 people that are going to watch. 500 of them are in Saudi Arabia. Some of them, God knows particularly where these people are, and he knows that you are the tool that he's going to use to save those people. So we will put the right words when you avail yourself as a tool. How many of us have failed to put a camera in front of us because we are fatigued? Like, the camera is there, you have a very good phone, like everything that you need. You cannot give an excuse, you actually have it. And then after that, you're like, how am I going to start? Now I'm going to repeat myself. I'm going to do what? And then that happens 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But guess what? Whenever you see other people showing up, you're like, one day I'm going to show up like that. When I ask you why you have failed to show up, you have no explanation. Sorry? You just keep promising yourself. And that is self-hatred. That is self-hatred. Because if you love yourself, when you promise something, you fight to fulfill it and do it. Okay? So, when in John it says that the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. You can't have an abundant life while having fatigue. No. Abundant life is supposed, guys, you're supposed to giggle like a child. Do you know in Sekeze Ziva Mulubuto? The laughter that comes, no, when was the last time you laughed genuinely from your belly? Like, you see that? Do you know how many years you can buy all the collagen that you want to buy in the world? For as long as you are fatigued, we are seeing wrinkles. Why? Because you will squint your eyes where you're not supposed to squint. Bikusobera, nebikutabula, newebuze bibuzo. You are always having conversation inside your mind. But do you know that a time can come and you have very good conversation inside your mind and you're like, I dodged the bullet. And a relationship has ended. Yeah? And you're like, hey, namuonye. And you're like, instead of crying, you're celebrating. If that is not the joy of the Lord, then what is that? If that is not the peace that surpasses human understanding, like, if it surpasses a human understanding, that means they can't explain it. They're like, she's going through a fire, but it just feels like a normal thing. If it were me, I would have died, like suffocated long time ago. But for them, they are going through. And they are still going, okay? Because I want us to run very quickly and go to the symptoms, but I don't want to go to the symptoms minus this preamble, okay? And how many of us here love starting new projects? You love new projects? Do you know why some of us love new projects? It's because when the old ones get uncomfortable, when the old projects start, that is why you will do something halfway and you're like, I think I should start, and there all of a sudden you have energy to start. Yeah. But the other time now, it had become very uncomfortable. And so, in the heat of the moment, you're like, you know what? I think this is not what God wants. And sometimes we even speak for God. I think this is not what God wants me to do. Let me just open up another project. Now, sometimes we don't start projects because we have so much clarity or we are too creative. No. It's because we want to close one chapter of a project that became uncomfortable. And because when things become uncomfortable, that is where the growth is. Okay? That is where you fight harder. When business becomes hard, that is not time for you to pull out. That is time for you to actually take the uphill task. That is time for you to plunge deeper. That is time for you to ask yourself, what can I do? Okay? If people are saying no to your price, you ask yourself, okay, have I been charging too high? But maybe I need to level up in my skill so that I can be able to charge that price comfortably. Maybe I need to target new people. Maybe I need... So do you see that in that moment you are scaling your understanding instead of backing down and saying, let me start an easy one. Do you know, new projects have adrenaline, eh? There is that adrenaline. You even feel... have you ever talked about a new project that you don't have intentions of doing? But when you talk about it, you feel like it's pumping you with adrenaline and oxytocin. You feel satisfied. That is what she talked about last time, that whenever I talk about a project, I end up not actually doing it, or I end up not doing it, because you get satisfaction in discussing. But you know, that now, you know, I am writing this book. You know, I am doing this project. And then that project never comes out of the pipeline. Never out of the pipeline. But while you're talking about it, you feel like you are, you're really doing it, and you're achieving it. So do you know that some of those things happen even in relationships? Do you know there are people who run away from people love it when the honeymoon phase is still on. When the honeymoon phase gets finished, they look for another honeymoon. What they want is butterflies, honey bear, you know, boo-boo. That is what they want. But when they say, but you're chewing with your mouth open, they're like, this relationship has become old. It's better. Sorry? As in, by the time someone gets point blank, to tell me that I'm chewing with my mouth open, to your swankula. Hey! That means, and yet, that is the sweetest part of the relationship. Because then someone has settled in and has gotten used to you, and they can tell you, some people don't want to be told. They don't want to be told. So we enjoy the novelty of new programs and new projects. Why? Because we are fatigued. So we want to feel like there is a new project. And so we will talk about it, we will plunge in, but as soon as it gets hard and uncomfortable, we will flip the chapter and open another. And that is not how it's supposed to be. I want us to run very, very quickly. We are going to circle back and be able to come back here. But I want us to go through the symptoms, okay? The symptoms that you are overwhelmed, you are fatigued, you are doing too much. Because as people help us, we need to be clear. We need to be clear in order to help other people. How can you disentangle other people from their entanglements if you're still entangled? You're still in prison, but you're telling people, I am getting you out of prison. You're still poor, but you're telling people, I'm taking you out of poverty. Like, what witchcraft is that? That is witchcraft, right? We must be people that bear fruits. Like the Bible says that we are planted by the water side. That we bear fruits in our own season. That our leaves do not wither. As a people helper, your leaves should not wither. By the way, does it mean that you will not go through circumstances or bad situations? You will go through them, but you will not look like them. And at times you will go from crying in the bathroom to a podium that has over 1,000 people, and you're going to speak to them, and their lives are going to be changed, and you're going to go away and ask God, but is it me who spoke? Like, where did I even get the energy? But sometimes when you release, we need a time to release, guys. We need a time to clear our minds. We need a time to just say, I am releasing everything that had fogged me up, everything. If you can do you know that so many of us, according to research, not my research, we have creative thinking for 30 minutes in a span of 8 hours. And 30 minutes I've even taken it high. 20 minutes is what the research says. So I added the 10 minutes. Creative thinking. But some of us do not even have the 20 minutes where you are creatively thinking. Like you are always onto something. We love stacking. We love, information. We are taking in everything. We are always thinking, how many of us are hoarders of information? You think, I will need this at one point. You screenshot that, you read that, you take that, and then you're like, one day I will do an advert like that one. One day I will do graphics like those ones. One day I will put on like this one. Yeah, these shoes, I need them. Hey, the nails, you screenshot those ones. Now, you are stacking in everything. Remember, I said that fatigue comes out of consuming. Yeah. But remember, our fulfillment is in contribution. So you cannot consume until you are fatigued, because this is garbage in, garbage out. So that means everything you're going to bring out is going to be garbage. Because you have not taken time to even channel, to even listen to your creator, to even be silent. You know the silence of the phone is not there. Ever, we are always looking, even when we are sleeping. Our phones, they light up. The phone lights up, and all of a sudden you look at, and you want to see which number, and then sometimes you're like, let me leave it, and then nechikulumiriza, but now, and we are in that state for a whole week, 7 days, and then we start another 7 days with more fatigue. You start Monday, but you are very burnt out. Number one, excessive irritability. And this is where the people that love you and the people that you love get the worst of you for something that they didn't do to you. They didn't do anything to you. As people help us, we have to be big people or big human beings that handle big things. But we have not widened ourselves enough to be able to accommodate what we are supposed to handle. So now we become excessively irritable. You look at your child, you're supposed to do homework with your child, but you're barking at them. You're telling them, hurry, we don't have time. Where are you going? You're not going anywhere. But your mind is telling you, what do I be kuitako kusimu? You're supposed to be scrolling. How many of us are here? I know, we have to be honest. But even when you are cooking, some people cook with their phones in one hand and mixing with the other hand. We are always in the missing syndrome. It's consuming us, and it's causing a lot of fatigue. And you miss out on what your partner is saying, but you're saying, But when he asks you, what did I tell you? You don't remember the last conversation you had in the last seconds. And haphazardly you give them answers. And sometimes you feel, there is only one thing I'm finishing. Some of us go to toilets with phones. Yes. And we consume 100 posts in microseconds. Seriously. That is how far it has gone out of hand. So now when you become irritable, you're telling your maid or house help, and you're telling them about the food, but you have not even given them the proper orders. Why? Because every time you are rushing. There are more important things for you to do. But you don't know what the important things are. Have you ever gone to just make your bed? You go into your room to make your bed, and it ends up making you. No, like you start with sitting at the corner, you start scrolling, and then no terera, and then you start to go. All of a sudden you're on the bed. And some of you, there is a gentleman who told me that my wife first hears the hooting. That is when everything becomes. I told you in our home we had Jemima. Jemima is, she follows Diana. Jemima is the tornado of the house. That one, even if you're a visitor, you come in microseconds unannounced. If she can see you before 2 seconds elapse, everything in the sitting room disappears. Like a magic wand, she sits there and just does this. And all of a sudden, everything is away. I know bwangu bwalina nabikasuka wansi wemeza like everything is wiped clean. Ate natula namagulu nakola ati. Nagamba tusajyo sokula. I'm like, you know what? I don't have that gift. If you find me seated down, whether I am doing what or I am doing what, that is where you find me. You're the one who came into the home. So join me. So join me. So you realize that excessive irritability. Some of us have gone to church and you have not listened to the message. You have remained on your phone. You are in a taxi and you are in your phone. You are in an Uber, you are on your phone. Your mind is exhausted, but it cannot switch off. It's a supercomputer. But guess what? God knew it that we will need rest. God knew it that we will need to plug out. So when you go bleeding onto other people, being irritable. Number 2, let's go very quickly because we are going to take long here. Okay? Because when you become irritable, in this, before we even go to number 2, when you become irritable, this is what happens. You cannot build for longer. Even relationships, even friendships, you cannot. You start and end things in the middle. Why? Because you don't have the capacity to be able to contain them, to hold fort. You snap very quickly, okay? And the snapping is not helping. Number 2, hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity. Has someone ever told you that you are too sensitive? A very minor thing causes a major blow up. That even constructive criticism feels like character assassination. Otherwise, they are attacking you. If they talk about the phone, if they talk about whatever it is that they talk about, you don't have to. Like you have made it evident, do not talk about. You are fatigued. You are overwhelmed. You've been doing a lot, and it's written all over your face. Because a person that is rested, have you ever talked to a person who is calm and collected? That even when you tell them, okay, but the other word, the word that you said, I don't know whether it was intentional, but it just didn't rub me the right way. It's like, which word? And then, like, no, I didn't intend it to use like that. They are collected, they are calm. But for you, every time we use any word, and all of a sudden, you've made it something that is very big. Someone wants very little clarity. Very little clarity. Or someone comes to you and tells you, but I don't know if you read through the post, but I think there are some typos. Lwaki tabiyitako? Now, if you're a public speaker and someone maybe gives you feedback and tells you that, you know what, you spoke so well, you got to maybe half time and you broke even, but the starting did not have a proper footing. Like we didn't get you took long to settle in the message that you were saying. And you're like, kakati aloza ya manyinyo kale lwaki yesi ya bikola. Because sometimes the people that give us proper feedback are not even speakers. But they can sense it. They can sense it that while you were speaking, you were trying to find your footing. But you had not found your footing. And so they're like, if you can be able to nail it in the first 5 minutes, work towards that. Because it took longer and we got tired. After that, and you're like, you know, can't you tell me? As in, you are hypersensitive. A person who is hypersensitive, something small, you know, ogugumuka. And people who are hypersensitive, this is what happens. When you are fatigued, you become insecure. So now, because of insecurity, when someone tells you something, even if it is the truth, they come in peace. You never take it peacefully. Why? Because for you, you have planned to fight. You are already guarded. You're like, I am the one who knows. I am the one who, you know, Kamala Yuna. Number 3, restlessness. You can't slow down. Remember, you are where your mind is. Okay? It's possible that you are here, but your mind is not here. Even if you planned for a vacation and you're like, but you know what, let me just take some days and rest. So now you're in Dubai, but your mind is in Kampala. Is that rest? Because every time, even if you move, with a partner, I've seen restless partners. Even if you move your partner and you're like, you know what, let's just take this time and rest. Let's, as in the children are in the hands of their granny, as in we trust everything. She has our best interest. Do you know a restless person will stealthily go to the bathroom to make a call home to find out what they cooked and whether the children ate? It's his responsibility, but there is a restlessness sometimes that overconsumes you. Do you know that there are people, yes, we term it as responsibility, nenga twekoya bwekoya. I used to be that kind of person. Like I would be, I wanted to micromanage everything until I learned that I'm going to burn myself out. And now, toina chongamba. Sakula. Eh? Sakula. You get it? So I give myself peace where I need to give myself peace. I trust the people that have delegated the job to if I need to trust them, so that I can have the peace of mind. Otherwise, I cannot be divided into 100 pieces and still do what I am supposed to do, or even just have the peace of mind. Because part of what I'm supposed to do is to be a suitable partner to Mr. Sabiti. Wanji? Hey, a suitable partner that is present, that is attentive. Wanji? Eh? So, definitely, this is because it has been cultivated. You get it? So I'm like, if this is part of my responsibility, I am going to accord it a huge block of time. I can say no to a speaking engagement because I just want to sit with him and be silent. Mind your business, I mind my business, but we are here. Not in a bad way, you get it? But you just enjoy each other's company. If you've not gotten to that cafes of you want to speak every time, how many of you are in relationships that you want to speak every time? Eh? A time comes where silence is the best romance. Yes. The best. Akuba oluso nawe nomukuba oluso nomukonako kuchibegabega naye nakukonako nemugenda maaso nemuwereza Katonda. Okay, let's go to number 4. Workaholism. Workaholism. Some of us are too restless. Just like we said. Your work becomes your escape because your identity is attached to it. So I'm asking yourself, who are you if you're not doing what you're doing? Because some of us, our identity is attached to motherhood. Our identity is attached to our jobs. Our identity, when they ask you who you are, that is the first thing that you mention. And you just get, it's a way of escape for you. But remember, you are fatigued. But the more you are fatigued, the more you show up. The more you fatigue, the more you do things. The more you fatigued, I don't know how it's called in English. Why? Metal attractor, metal magnet. Like, yeah, even like, have you ever seen people? I grew up at my uncle's place. We were so many, and like leftovers were like not a biggie because they would even steal your food. Like you sleep, and your food is taken. Yes, so when we had those people of Buliemlemie later. I don't know whether you had those people. Yeah, because we were over 30-something children in our home. So if you have 30-something children, you buy a sack of potatoes. And then, so you're like, and then some of us, I grew up to now. That I cannot drink on another person's cup or I cannot eat on another person's plate. So now, for me, if you come and just touch in my plate, that is the end of my eating. Like when I was a child, my daughter has taken the same trait, but I bind it in the name of Jesus. I don't know where that comes from. Sorry? She will outgrow it, definitely. Yeah, even when I never got to outgrow it. And unfortunately, yeah, the only person I can share with is my husband. Others, no. You don't drink on a cup and I drink on it, even if I am dying of thirst. Maybe God will take it away from me. I don't know whether it's something bad or something good. But that is who I am. But when it comes to ways of escape, okay? You escape into something that you have attached your mind to. Some of us are going to attach our minds to coaching, or we are going to attach our identities to what we are doing. And guess what? The people in your life are going to suffer because of the position and the calling. That is why we need a lot of wisdom so that we don't make the people in our lives tired of who we are. Because if they get tired, instead of supporting you, they will be pulling you down. Especially the good people. If they're out there to support you, be out there to make them love it. Not to make them hate it. Because when, for example, if your children know all the time, have you seen pastors' children that don't like churches? They're like, the church stole our father. It took our mother also. So we don't want. I told you for how the longest time I'd sworn never to get married to a pastor, right? Yeah. Like, even if you came to me, even if you were walking with your head down and you were swimming in dollars or you were doing what, I don't know. Like, you were just not my cup of tea. I even prayed against it. I fasted. But why? Because I grew up in a home of a pastor. So now I knew firsthand that I could not eat minus the visitors eating. And I was the firstborn, so the responsible one. So my mother attached so much of her identity to church. She groomed us so well. She nurtured us so well. But I felt like the church was consuming our home. And so I didn't want any of that to repeat. Sorry? So, workaholism. Whatever it is that you are touching you, some of us, we are running away from certain things. Maybe someone mistreated you, or maybe someone did not see you as important. And now that you feel like you're doing something important, you want to exert and show them that, you know what? Who is importanter? That is not how we build empires. We build with humility. Okay? Because pride also comes to those that are fatigued, because it is a tool that they use to manipulate others. Okay? So, workaholism. Number 5, emotional numbness. You lose the capacity for empathy. You judge people who are emotionally... Sometimes, do you know that we judge so many people without knowing where they're coming from? The point is emotional numbness. Emotional numbness. You lose capacity for empathy because you're fatigued. You're looking at people, you're judging them. You're looking at people, you're making your own conclusions. You're looking at people, even your clients, by the way. Even your clients. Even the people that you lead. Like you are emotionally numb. Why? Because you have been fatigued for a very long time. That you are even numb to your workers, to the people that you employ, if you're a boss. That you are numb, and numbness in leadership is very, very, very destructive. It can destroy. Because we want someone that can be inspiring, that can be nurturing, someone that can open up doors, a leader that can open up, that can pray for us, a leader that can wish us to be better. But we don't want a leader who closes doors and shuts everything down. And it's like, that is as far as you can go. That is emotional numbness. That is why sometimes I look at people and I'm like, is it a woman who did that? And that woman has children? You get it? As in, someone mistreats someone that is working for them, and it's a lady that is doing that, and a lady who has her own children, that maybe they would want someone else to treat them well. And you're planting such a seed, you know? Some of the things that happen to us, that is where we go back to the iniquities and we go back to the bloodlines. There are people who planted seeds that we are reaping, that we must be able to cut from the ground and say, no more, I am not reaping from this. They planted their seed, but it does not cross into my generation. That is why I talked about the protection, the preventing, the circle, making a circle around with prayer, intentional prayer. Making a circle around the things that belong to you, around your children and around your family. So emotional numbness. People are too busy. You know, when you become numb, you don't want to adjust to anything. Even when someone tells you about the mistake that you did, you don't want to adjust to anything. You're still enjoying your roller coaster. That is numbness. So I want you to look at yourself and ask yourself, where have I been numb? Someone tells me about their issue, or even a client, and all of a sudden there is no empathy at all. How can we step into their footsteps to be able to help them, give them solutions, if we cannot have the empathy? The empathy is the first thing on the line, okay? Let's go to number 6. Out of order priorities. The moment you become fatigued, okay? You become too responsible for other people's responsibilities that you forget your own responsibilities. You are fatigued. How many of us have ever been fatigued by how we are going to be looked at? How we are going to be understood? So now, what have we taken on? Responsibilities for other people. We have forgotten our own is to be authentic, to be ourselves, whether we are likable or not likable. But now, we are thinking for the other person, we are editing our words, and now we are tolerating more than we should tolerate, and now we are even editing our boundaries. Why? Because our priorities are out of order. Because we are fatigued. The moment you rest, and there is somewhere in the Bible, I don't know where that is, but it says that in coming back and in resting, that you shall be restored. Where is that, if anyone knows? That in coming back and resting, you shall be restored. You shall be rejuvenated. Whenever you are rejuvenated, you start to see things clearly. Because, topapa, you start to see things clearly. You start, what did they say? Hey, okay. Okay, let's see. Instead of you reacting, instead of you pouring paraffin on, instead of you pouring salt on the wounds, you're the kind who is calculated with your words. You choose your battles. You don't fight things that you're not supposed to fight. Why? Because you have your priorities in order. And sometimes the priority list of a person that is sober and collected does not even exceed like 3 things or 4 things. Like you don't have some of us have long priority lists. Now, that speaks to the people that have been at the battlefront for so long. And that is us. You've been fighting your whole life. You've been figuring out things. You've been hustling. You have been like everything has been fighting. And now you get here and God is saying, rest in my embrace. You are my child. I care about you. I have predestined a good future for you. Can you be able to lessen your priority list? Can your to-do list, can it be short? Don't invert it so that other people's things are on top of your things. Or they come first before you come. Okay? So, out of order, priorities. Remember, it is about God, number 1. Okay? And then some of us, because it says, love your neighbor, but we do not read it in the proper order because it says, as you love yourself. That means yourself comes before the neighbor. So it is God, yourself, and the neighbor. So if your priority is inverted, people's opinions, then God, then you're down here. And now you're asking yourself why you're fighting all the battles in the world. You're kicking this one, you're kicking an elbow into this one. You're looking at a mouth that is frowning, do you know that you can look at someone who is frowning, and for a good reason that you know why they are frowning, and you're like, if they are not careful. Because you're like, I'm not letting it touch me. I'm not letting it concern me. I have better things to be concerned with. Guys, we need to serve God and we need to serve people with sanity. With a level of clear-headedness and level-headedness. We cannot build businesses with fogged mindsets. We cannot build our personal finances with a fog in our mind and exhaustion. Because we are going to go in a rat race. You promise yourself to do this, you don't. You promise yourself to see a coach, you don't. You promise yourself to sign up for something, you don't. You promise yourself until you are exhausted. And then after that, we give up sometimes. Okay? So, number 8. Escapist behavior. For you, you're running away all the time. Whenever, they're asking something, someone is suggesting something, you are always running somewhere, okay? And it's not helpful. And we talked about escaping, especially when it comes to work and other things that we talked about. Let's talk about number 9. Sorry? Where are we? Are we number 7? Yes. Okay, I think, yes, it was number 7. Okay, let's go to slippage in spiritual disciplines. Now, I call it slippage. I called it my own name, definitely. But slippage means that you just get off the radar of what you would call your disciplines. For example, how many of us have failed to pray sometimes? So many times. You fail to pray. You promise yourself that you're going to fast and you don't fast. You promise yourself that you're going to have a closer walk with God and you don't. So now that decline in the spiritual disciplines, sometimes it's an indication that you are overwhelmed and you're fatigued. Because in the times where you are level-headed, it's so easy, because even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, even if, as in, you find it so easy that even if you're walking, you can make a prayer. Even if you, as in, you don't need to put in too much effort. But some of us, we promise ourselves big things and we do nothing. Okay? So the decline in your spiritual disciplines, ask yourself, there is fatigue. Some of us, we've even we've gone out of either a church or a place you were going to worship because of fatigue. Some of us are fatigued. And so we end up transplanting ourselves from different places to different places. And sometimes, you look at people and you see the way they are looking at me. I told you that when you're fatigued, you have you're insecure. So now, you see the way they look at me, like they are clear, luckily, they are in your head. Katindoza lipstick gwenta dekali cheap. Ani akubuziza lipstick. Wanji? I know. Yes, yeka atude na tesa ne yeteseza na byeyogerera ate ayagala bisiba kubalala. Tewali akwogeddeko. But the moment you have those slip-ups, okay, in your spiritual life, that is where the devil is also going to bring in all his things, all his kwara. And it's going to be so believable that when someone else tells you who you are not, you're going to believe that that is who you are. And yet you're much better than that. Okay? So, being too busy for God. Being too busy. Too busy. That is part of the slippage. Being too busy for God. And the last one, isolation. You're doing too much. Surrounded by so many people, but you're feeling lonely. Others, you're on a party, clearly you even put on according to the theme, you look nice, but for whatever reasons, whenever you're like, oba banjagala mu kifaananyi kyabwe, kansooke nninde bampite. Abamu kumwe mbaweteddemu ekkoona. But the thing is, some of us, have you ever felt isolated at a party where everyone was having fun, they were laughing, they were going to get drinks, and now you want people to tell you, but you can go and add yourself. But no one is telling others. But do you know, when you're in a certain place where you are free, you just go anyhow. You just pick anything you want. And all of a sudden, because now you're speaking a lot, you're in your mind, all of a sudden you're isolating yourself. You're like, you see, they chose to talk to so-and-so, now it seems me, I'm out. But when there is nothing like that, do you know that you go and stand even in front of them and you're like, why? Because you have a free spirit. So do you see what a free spirit does? But when you are overwhelmed and fatigued, now you're taking everything personal. Very, very personal. That someone can fail to call you to invite you for their bridal shower, and all of a sudden, get, I know that it is Saturday, I am coming. Mwambala kalachi, I know with or without the invitation. Why? Because you've been in that circle and you're friends and you have free-spirited. But the moment you get overwhelmed and fatigued, now you start, ever since Caroline came into that group. I mean, I think she loved me as long as she didn't have any, but now that she has, now you start making conspiracy theories, And let me tell you, conspiracy theories can be sweet. Ojeka ka magulu, nojiteka ka magulu, amina mitwe, nojiteka ko na matu, nenyuma bulungi nnyo. And you believe in it. And guess what? When you believe in it, you start selling it. When someone's, what's happening? Agamba, mama. Bayinza okuba batuyise wano naye mulimu ebyana n'abaana. You've not seen that. Do you know that obwo buba bufunda bwa mutima? Chances are the other person did not even think about it. Maybe they just forgot. And by the way, even if they didn't forget and they wanted to exclude you, you get it? Then if you know it, you mind your business. And then if you still want to come, you're like, you know what? I am coming. I am coming and I will be the life of the party. Hey. And you are free. You network with, you are shame the devil. You know, but guys, there is nothing that is as bad as cocooning our lives. There is nothing as bad as that. But fatigue can do so many things. It can do so many things. The people that end up doing all the things, the weird things that we have seen, depressed, that all comes from being overwhelmed, the fatigue that they fail to handle because they are not big enough human beings with big enough capacity to handle what has fallen on them. Expand our horizons. I want us to get to decongest, to declutter. Okay? I want you to get an hour in a day where you can release, where you can sit with your thoughts. Guys, sit with your thoughts and think about issues. Do not run away from issues. Running away from issues is not a solution. If you need to sit down and think without even scrolling your phone, without Googling, Google is not there, as in you're not supposed to look for everything from Google. There are times from Google and there are times when God expects you to engage your brain, to sit down, to even just take a walk in nature and leave your phone behind. Guys, if there is anything that is going to kill people in this generation, phones are one of them. Killing marriages, killing relationships, killing parental relationships, killing children. Yourself. Do you know that when I decided to go cartoon-free in my home and phone-free in my home, right now my children sleep better? They sleep better. Much better. That now they are playing and you can see that Ariel is engaging the sister and she's going to the other end of the house, and as in they're becoming creative. Getting bottles, getting dishes, and they're trying to make it work. And when you tell them that it's time to eat, it's time to eat. They go. And when you tell them it's time to bathe, hitting the shower, it's time to sleep, they are sleeping. They are no longer dreaming about, what were they dreaming about? They were dreaming about mermaids. You know those cartoon mermaids? And there was someone, I dreamt about a monster. And indeed, maybe they watched Hotel Transylvania. Have you ever watched Hotel Transylvania? And those vampires. And then all of a sudden, and guess what? We are sitting them because we don't want distractions in our lives. We are sitting them in front of cartoons so that we can mind our business. And all of a sudden, do you know what happens when that screen is rolling so fast? Their normal growth is deterred. That now they start demanding things at a faster rate. Have you ever seen your child? One time they want chocolate, the other time they want this. And then all of a sudden, I don't want it anymore. And then they ask for food, you give it to them, I don't want that anymore, I want another one. As in their brains are, why? Because they're scrolling. All of a sudden, they're seeing people with pink lipstick, which has shimmer, simanyi, they are seeing what? And all of a sudden, they're asking for these things in real life. And those things, you're not going to get them from anywhere. But now their minds are more mature than their age. And all of a sudden, you expect to bring up a normal child. But what is causing that? Fatigue. If we are fatigued as parents, it comes down to the children. It comes down, just like they say that with a bad boss, the dog suffers, the maids suffer, everything in the house suffers. You can even kick the tire of the car. We talked about being irritable, right? When you're irritable, do you think right? You don't. So now, let's go back to decluttering, okay? Let's go back to decluttering. Let's not be taken away by new projects. Let's not be taken away by covering up and bandaging our wounds. Let's face our wounds. Let's face what is bringing the fatigue. Have you been thinking about that project, but you're not getting clarity? Do you want to seek for clarity? Do you want to plug out? How some of you have seen how to sell this, how to market this, and there are 1,000 coaches on internet who are doing those things. And now you're like, oh, what should I do and what should I not do? Everything sounds good, but again, it's not even working, some of it. Okay, that is where you sit down and like, okay, do I really need to think about this thing? If I have not gotten any clarity about it, can I consult from someone? Can I pray about it? Can I just sleep over it? You know, can I disengage? Do you know that when you disengage from an issue and then you come back to it later, how you think is different from when you were boiling in it and sweating in it and thinking about it? The moment you disengage and see it from outside, then it becomes clearer. Guys, these are symptoms, but I bet so many of us have found ourselves in these symptoms. And I hope that we can go back and release that energy and be able to deal with our overwhelm and be able to deal with the fatigue, because if you don't deal with it, that fatigue is bringing you down. But it's not just bringing you down, it's bringing your whole generation down. Because if the blessing that God gives us goes to the 4th generation, even the exhaustion and the stagnation and the curse goes to the 4th generation. What do you want to pass on to your children? You want to pass on resilience. You want to pass on bouncing back. You want to pass on the capacity and the potential to fight through issues, the clarity, the calmness, the collectedness. You want to pass on the good, okay? You don't want to pass on the bad. So can you deal with the bad now? Can you go through all those symptoms and say, no, no more. I am never going to be irritable anymore. I love you guys. And bless you, bless you.